Jacurri Brown and Kylan Fox are out. UCF has needs in the portal. What will Scott Frost do?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator extraordinaire, to talk a little UCF football here on a Friday. It's a Friday that feels like a Wednesday, James. I don't know if it's raining where you're at, but it is gloomy over here. I don't know if it's gloomy for UCF football. We're going to talk about that on today's show. Jacurri Brown and Kylan Fox are hitting the portal. We'll talk about the impact of their departures on UCF's roster. Then we're going to talk about portal needs in our second segment. And then is UCF a bowl game outlier in our last segment? Let's start at the top here, man. A lot's going on here. Today's show is brought to you by our title sponsor, FanDuel. Get in the game with FanDuel right now. Download the app right now. They've got lots of exciting deals on there. NBA season is here. We appreciate FanDuel for sponsoring this segment. Jacurri hitting the portal, probably not a shock. Kylan hitting the portal, a little bit more of a shock. A little bit more. It hurt, maybe hurt a little bit more. Let's start with Jacurri Brown. It never really found his stride at quarterback. And I would not say that he didn't get a chance here, though. I think he had a fair shot under both coaches to get out there, and ultimately an inability to throw the ball with accuracy is what kept him from being. But he is as far as athletic ability, 5 stars, man. This kid is super athletic, and if he's open to a position change, I think that he may be able to find success. Otherwise, he's going to have to, head back to working on his throwing game, man, because it left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I believe he was a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school, committed to Miami. He had a little stint for them, played multiple games for them his freshman year, I believe, or maybe his redshirt freshman year, because he came in for an injured quarterback. I believe it was Tyler Van Dyke. That's maybe I'm pulling out strings there, but he's an athlete. And it definitely sucks to lose somebody that is just that athletic in general. I feel like he'd be lethal at multiple different positions on the field, and whatever he decided to play, he could be good at. Quarterback is such an important position that if you are lackluster in any of the things necessary for a quarterback to do, you can't make up for it with speed. You can't make up for it with agility, especially once you get into like real, true Power 5 football. You can see him carve up an NCAA, and you know that he is a Power 5 athlete. I just don't know if he has the arm accuracy to be a Power 5 quarterback. Hence, that's probably why he left. I can see him going and playing another position, but I could also see him playing G5 and playing well in the G5 and being maybe in an offense that utilizes his skill set a little more, something like an option offense or a screen-based offense that is, very heavy run opportunities. So, I think it definitely sucks for Jacurri to leave. He loved UCF. I think the big hitter that you didn't really expect was Kylan, and I agree with you for that. But I think you also have to look at the fact that Dylan Wade was supposed to be competing with Kylan for that position. He came in and won that position pretty hard.
He did. Dylan made our offensive MVP. He topped it. And when you look offensively, no one stood out for the Knights this year like Dylan Wade did offensively. Miles had his moments. Jaden had his moments. Taven had his moments. But, I just thought Wade was it, man. He was to me the most consistent offensive player. I think you agreed with that. We've got some other guys as we go through our offensive and defensive MVP series every week here this off season. That again had their moments, but consistency is what you're in search of. And Jacurri wasn't consistently good at anything, and then the injuries, man, it just couldn't stay healthy. When there was a window for him to come in and show what he could possibly do, he was hurt.
Yeah, no, it definitely, an AC sprain, and there's a lot of levels to AC sprains as UCF fans learned this year.
Yeah.
But with 3 quarterbacks getting injured throughout the year, it's really difficult to have your starter come in, he gets a concussion, your backup goes in, he gets an AC sprain, your starter, and then your third string comes in, gets an AC sprain, your starter for the year comes back in, he breaks his ribs. Like it just couldn't catch a break at the quarterback position this year. But I do think that if there's anything that UCF fans kind of secretly hoped for, or maybe openly hoped for, was a clearing house of the QB room. Obviously I do think Davi has this like untapped potential. I think it's another Jacurri situation where you need to, develop his arm. Because he has the athletic ability, he has the knowledge and the wherewithal when there is space in front of him to go. But it is just about having the arm accuracy and having the tempo. Because, I mean, if we look at Davi's one throw in the space game, he saw the right read. But there are so many things that went into that being an interception.
Yeah.
If he had thrown it to the back of the end zone, it would have been a touchdown. If he had thrown it a second earlier, it would have been a touchdown.
Game over.
Or if he had a cannon, like guys in the league do, then that ball zips there. But you have to look. That ball was lofted to the front of the end zone. There was no power on it, and the read was made late. So if you fix either one of those 3 options, you give your wide receiver a chance. And that's where development comes in. And that's where I think Mackenzie Milton is going to be so important in the development of not only Davi Belfort, if he chooses to stay, but also Rocco Marriott and Dante Carr and whoever they decide to bring in as a Band-Aid quarterback this year. Which obviously we're going to talk about some potential quarterback options in another episode. We do need to address the needs that we have, but I want to very quickly mention all guys who we know have gotten in the portal so far. And that is Jalen Hayward, who entered the portal before the season had ended. Kylan Fox, which was yesterday. Jacob Good entered the portal before the season had ended. Taven Jackson entered or announced that they were going to go in the portal yesterday. Jacurri Brown as well, who's a backup nickel. Tony Williams, who was a big 4-star recruit out of high school, good friends with Wade and Charles, and obviously Jacurri today. So you have 7 guys exiting. I think none of these guys you are looking at as players that were going to be big impact players as of next year. I think you are a little sad about maybe a guy like Tony Williams, Jalen Hayward, Jacob Good, these guys that were really high talents coming out of high school that were recruited here, and you were waiting for them to get their opportunities, and that never came.
Yeah, look, Jacurri Brown, the Valdosta native, had offers from everywhere. I mean, when you coming out of high school, Tennessee, Florida, Miami, West Virginia, Arkansas offered him, Georgia, LSU offered him, A&M, Texas A&M offered him. He committed to Miami, and then eventually transferred to UCF. Look, it's a journey for a lot of these guys, James. Your first home is not always your last home, especially in college football. But from what we've been told, he was the model teammate while he was here. Didn't get in trouble. He was, he did what was asked of him. It just wasn't, a good fit for him. And he stayed. He stayed when Frost came in. He didn't jump immediately, but it's always tough when one guy recruits you and then that guy's gone. And the next guy may not have the vision for your talent that the first coach had. So I think this was inevitable. Kylan, though, depth, man. You need more than one tight end, man. You need two dogs out there at tight end. And I was hoping maybe that he would stick around, but ultimately, after this first year, if you're Scott Frost, you're starting to flesh out that roster a little bit. You're doing evaluations, and here's what I do like. I don't know that this happened with Kylan. I'm assuming it happened with Jacurri, but the earlier in the process that these coaches tell these players, look, man, you don't fit what we're trying to do. The better for them, so that they can focus on finding their next home rather than stringing kids along for depth, right? And you already know they don't have any chance to play. The Dante Carr told us they were extremely honest with him. He pointed to honesty as a reason that he committed to this coaching staff. So I got to assume that once we see guys hitting the portal, there are some very honest conversations, James, that are being had with the current roster about what their prospects are and whether there's a future for them at UCF. So interesting discussion that will continue. Look, man, Jacurri and Kylan aren't the only ones that are leaving, obviously, but UCF is going to have some needs here. And I want to talk about portal needs on the other side of our break. What do they need to do in the portal to help solidify this roster for year two? We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place action as bets in action as it unfolds. Every drive, every moment, every swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best way when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or a momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys get hot, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, so many things you can bet on. It's so much fun. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Portal needs. As I mentioned on our last show yesterday, when looking at the high school recruiting class, I was a little taken back that there weren't more offensive linemen in there. I would like to see them hit the line heavy. James, championships are won in the trenches. I get it. The quarterbacks get all the praise and the receivers or get all the flashy moments. But if you cannot protect your quarterback and you can't get after the quarterback, if you cannot control the line of scrimmage, you're going to have a hard time winning at the highest levels of college football. Scott Frost has to figure out how to shore up his line. For me, I see one of their biggest areas of need, offensive line. His line was not good this year. They had something tragic that they had to deal with this season, but ultimately you've got to get better along the offensive line. If you got to get better quickly. There are not a ton of great linemen in the portal every portal season. So you really have to get after it quickly and figure out which guys, or figure out if there's some diamonds in the rough that are going to be in the portal along the line. Talk to me about where you see UCF's greatest areas of need here in the portal.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big area of need is obviously, I think the one to point at is offensive line. Most of the guys that were on your offensive line were either seniors, redshirt seniors, or fifth years this year. And so you're going to lose pretty much your entire offensive line. There's going to be some guys that are going to have a little bit of experience. Owen Spell came in relief of Paul Rubelt in a couple games this year and actually had some okay games. So you'll probably see him return next year. Preston Cushman is a guy that will be looked at as an offensive line player. And I believe Carter Miller has another year of eligibility. But you're going to have to pretty much go out and get maybe 5 or 6 guys that can come in and go compete for these offensive line positions. It's going to be brutal And let me tell you guys, offensive linemen aren't cheap. And every person thinks, oh, well, quarterback's the most expensive person on the roster. Of course, wide receivers are expensive. DBs are expensive. Offensive linemen are expensive. UCF needs to very much budget how they are going to spend this year, because it is going to be an expensive year. Last year, they slimmed down on the offensive budget. This year, they're going to need to split that 50-50, if not spending more on those offensive guys, because you've already found defensive guys. And I can tell you 100%, it is cheaper to retain a player than it is to go out and get some. It is always easier and cheaper to retain a guy, because most of these guys don't want to get in the portal. They want to stay. If they're being used and they're having good seasons, unless they're in G5 football or FCS football, they would like to stay where they're at, as long as they're happy and they have good relationships with their coaches and the fans like them, and they're, having a good time. They would, if a guy's making $1.2 million and some school out in, wherever is, Timbuktu is offering them 1.3, but they're happy where they're at, they're not going to take it for $100,000 raise. I'm telling you, that's just the situation. And so when you look at guys that you need to go get in the portal, most of the guys that you're retaining are on your defense. You're not retaining a ton of big impact players on offense, other than your freshmen and sophomore players that are developing and might move into bigger roles next year. So the entire offensive line is a massive portal need, but you also need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is quarterback and running back.
Yeah.
You have no starting quarterback next year. Your quarterbacks on the roster right now are Davi Belfort and potentially Cam Fancher, if he gets granted his medical waiver, and B, decides to stay, which I don't think most UCF fans would necessarily be too excited about if Cam Fancher is their starting quarterback next year. I think you've tried the guys that are in your room. I just don't see it working out, Mike.
Yeah, look, offensive line is one of those positions where you are more in control of your destiny than any other position. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're a receiver, you can be a dog, but if they don't throw you the ball, well, there's only so much you can do, right? If you're a quarterback, you touch the ball every play. If you're a running back, again, there are things that you can do outside, right? In offensive line, you're blocking every play. And you can block well every play, no matter how bad everybody around you is. You can grade out highly, and it's a lot. You understand what I'm saying? Like you got to your point about linemen. They don't really want to go. They don't really want to go. So you can hold on to something. The other part of what you said that I want to key in on: acquisition versus retention. And it being cheaper to keep a guy than it is to go out and get a guy. I couldn't agree more with that. Like, I just think, if you've got guys, especially where UCF is at, I think it's cheaper to keep her. Personally. It just, you didn't put, I'm not sure anybody played well enough that they should be demanding more NIL dollars here this offseason.
Maybe Dylan Wade.
Yeah, right. And so at the end of the day, you put a little sauce on it for the guys that you want to keep for the most part. But when I tell you it's the wild, wild west out here in the portal, with guys demanding crazy numbers here, and a lot of kids really overvaluing their worth in the portal. It looks flashy, but there are a lot of kids that get in the portal and end up without homes, and we never talk about them. They get lost in the portal, or they end up somewhere worse than if they had just stayed. So, if you're Scott Frost, I think you want to be that place where it's just safe for kids to stay. And I think retention is going to be a focus here in this new era of NIL, because once dollars are invested, James, once you find good linemen and you paid $500,000 for your linemen, you're going to want to keep those guys as many years as you can. And that may have an effect on your high school numbers, right? Like, I mean, because you only got so many dollars to spend, and the kids coming in are demanding all these dollars. Like, the NFL went through this, I think, around like 2010. Yeah, it definitely was 2010. I don't know if you remember, but like Sam Bradford got like $75 million with $50 million guaranteed. And he did almost nothing at the NFL level. And the next year, Cam Newton was the number 1 overall pick, and he got, only like 22, but the whole contract was guaranteed. And the NFLPA said, you guys are blowing all your money on these unproven rookies while you've got veteran guys who should be getting paid. They should be getting those dollars. So they put the rookie wage scale in to try to curve off teams blowing all this money on unproven talent. I think college has the same issue coming, where every high school kid that comes out, this is the next best thing. You got some schools who don't care, so they're going to drop crazy money and they're going to drive the market way up. That's why when Tennessee said no to Nico, I was so happy, because in my mind I'm thinking he wanted $4 million. What? You were already making like 2.5, and the market said no, and he got like 1.7 plus California taxes from UCLA, and ended up in a worse situation. And they moved on. I would say they were successful without him.
No, yeah, and Mike, the NIL world is very tricky, and for people that have seen, for people that have seen the inside of this world, and I myself am someone that has seen the inside of this world, it is very tricky. I will say that, like, the players almost have so, like, of course they get to make the final decisions, but there are so many people in these players' ears talking about what they want. And as soon as you start making money, family members start to get involved, other things start to get involved, and it drives these players nuts. I promise you, it drives them nuts. You know, Mike, I mean, you have relationships with players, and you know how much that drives them insane. That's why, and I think, talking about getting overvalued versus undervalued and finding guys that want to stay and retaining, it's important to have a certain level of representation, but it's important to stick with the right guys, because there are guys out there that get agents, and they are bad reps, and they will tell a guy, hey man, I know you didn't start this year for Kent State, but I think you'd be really good in the Power 5. So I think I can get you there. And then they get in the portal and there's nowhere to go. Yeah. And so the problem is you need a guy that's going to be honest with you, and you need someone that is going to give you an accurate representation of who you are and where you're able to play. And that is why the NIL world and the transfer portal is so difficult. And a lot of these kids that leave their previous schools, sure, it might be their decision, it might be their agent in their ear, it might be their family in their ear, or and I hate to be this guy, but sometimes the coaches say, hey man, we're not looking to retain you. We would like you to go somewhere else. And so it's funny because there's so much, well, it's not funny, but it's weird that there's so much hate for players that leave when oftentimes it's not their choice. It's not in their best interest.
Yeah, they're definitely being told to go. Great conversation, James. Before we get to our next segment, a couple comments here I wanted to address. UCF Black and Gold says QB and O-line signed 2 for both this class should be the main focus. Not upset about losing these QBs to the portal. We have a good incoming class to develop. Just need a clear P4 so they can get ready. Mark Blue says Jacurri should go replace Parker Navarro at Ohio. That offense is his jam. Kylan should find a spot, but probably FCS. Taven might find a solid G5/6 spot. Kylan is making a mistake. UCF Black and Gold comes back and says NIL will be changing in a few years. I see contracts coming. You get paid X for staying X years here, and caps put in place. Might not happen until the two big leagues happen. Essentially, he's talking about the SEC and the Big Ten, maybe leading the charge on this. look, more rules are going to have to be put in place. I'm telling you, this model is with this money is going to follow the pros because they're having pro problems now. Now that you have pro money, and it may not be $100 million contracts, but some of these kids are making generational wealth, and so it changes the way you look at your roster. Once you've invested 10 million in a roster, you don't want to see that walk out the door. You don't. And so if I've spent the money developing a kid for 2 years and then suddenly he gets good and then he goes and decides to test the portal, right, and finds out he can get double what we're paying him, well, it's why it's important if you're Scott Frost that you win, because you're going to need that support, that financial support to keep these kids on campus. Retain, especially along the O-line. So hopefully they can find a few good linemen in the portal this offseason. But look, let's get to our next break. And after we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about UCF maybe being a bowl game outlier, James. We will see next on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Aura Farms, guys. Oh, Aura Frames, I'm so sorry. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting is on, and you don't want to miss out. Aura Frames has deals that you definitely don't want to miss. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, memories are there. No apps to figure out, no setup, no headaches, just instant smiles. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Aura Frames, great gift for the holidays. James, 5-win UCF. Every year, there is a chance that a couple 5-win teams could make a bowl game. Depending on the team, some teams decline these bowl invites. Others say, hey, yes, we want the extra game. Talk to me about their outlier bowl chances here at 5 wins. One of the things to consider if you're one of these lower tier bowls that's going to take a 5-win team is, #1, do their fans travel? Right? Like, can we sell tickets to this game if we take the team? And 2, obviously, how good is the team? Is this one of the better 5-win teams in the country that will give us a good show? I mean, ultimately, the goal of these bowl committees is to put 2 teams together that will duke it out and give you a really, really good show. UCF maybe could be one of those teams with Taven out and Jacurri out. Who's Davi's your quarterback for the bowl game? Maybe Cam Fetcher,
maybe Brock Hansel. Who knows?
Yeah, right. I mean, this is kind of a weird situation here. Talk to me about the outlier bowl chances for UCF.
I think it's funny. It's a very controversial topic, it seems. And I feel like I'm in the minority of people that say, like, hell yeah, man, I want to go. Like, I want this team to go to a bowl game. I feel like they could have won a lot of these games. And I'm not someone that says, like, oh, this team doesn't deserve it. Who am I to say that? I'm not on the field. I want these, like, football is some of the most fun that these guys have in their entire lives, and shorting them of even just one more game, especially for the seniors, man, who want to go out there. They want to go play one more game. They want to show everything that they have. It almost feels like a disrespect to turn it down. And for people that think that it's like a petty offer to, like a pity pick. I don't understand that. Kansas State turned down a bowl game. I think in order, and this could be wrong, but I think the next in the order of people to get a bowl game is Auburn or Rice, then Auburn, then UCF. So if those two teams, and we only really need 2 more dropouts or 1 more dropout, or depending on what happens in the bowl environment, to be able to go play a bowl game. It's a really important way for Davi's already burned his 4 games this year. So he can't apply for any sort of medical thing. So Davi would end up being your quarterback, which could allow him to see how the offense works with Davi behind center the entire game. There are some guys that will stay and will play to go show out for the next team that they go play for, or you let freshmen come in and they get to play their first college football game. I think it's good for everybody. It gives you extra practices. It allows for the rookie, the freshmen that are going to be coming in, to come to practice for a bowl game. Those guys that you just got out of high school for National Signing Day get to come practice with the football team. And that's one of the most important things for recruiting. It's a great experience for these guys. They get to travel, they get to go do things in different areas. Bowl games are kind of this whole special little vacation package for the football team. So I think it's really important that if UCF does get the opportunity, that they accept. I think it's probably a 50-50 shot that Scott will do that. He turned down one at Nebraska, I do believe, when he was coaching there. But I think it's a really great opportunity if UCF does get the opportunity to go.
Yeah, Auburn they got a new coach, so I'm not convinced they would accept the bowl invite if they had a shot. So it might clear the way a little bit if they're in front of UCF. Yeah, they were in this position I think a couple of years ago as well too. Weirdly enough, when there was a coaching change, it's a 5-win team, and look, there were some bowl games that would have been interested, but ultimately they said, look, man, we need to spend our offseason doing other stuff, our December doing other stuff, and not preparing for a bowl game. Yeah, I think, but I don't. That's not where UCF is at. If they get the invite, I think they should take it.
I think so too.
Yeah, and I think they should give that to fans this year. I think it would be cool to get a bowl game in a season like this, personally. And if you're Scott Frost, maybe another opportunity to evaluate some folks on your team. Prepare Davi Belfort as the starter for a week.
And see how it goes. I mean, you have no idea. I mean, the kid's only gotten a couple snaps in middle of game situations, and then at the very end of the space game. I think it's definitely interesting that if Frost gets the opportunity, I think a lot of fans would be like, it's very pity. It's a pity pick. But who doesn't want to see their football team play one more game? What you want to see your team play football, regardless of if it's against, an FCS team, or you go and you play, Miami or Alabama or whoever. You want to watch your team play football. And so I think it's a bad gig if you don't accept it.
I would agree with you. Look, man, I hope they get the opportunity, because I want to cover one more football game before it's all said and done. I think it would be so much fun. The BYU game left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Because they jumped out to a 14-0 lead and made us all think, oh my goodness, they're going to do it. They're going to upset of the year. And it all fell apart in one quarter. Yeah. So you had enough talent to jump out to a lead. Right. And it has been about consistency, I think, for this team. Scott Frost, pointed to the penalties and said he didn't really think they had a discipline problem. I respectfully disagree. But, one more game to evaluate what you got headed into the spring, probably not a bad idea if you're UCF, but we'll see what they do. Lots of fun conversations coming, as well as UCF basketball. Don't forget, we're going to cover that this offseason. James Duncan, UCF sports commentator, I want to thank you for joining me on today's show. Thank you guys for making us your first listen of every single day. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with even more Locked On UCF.